on your Alexa-powered smart speaker and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We've tackled this issue before. Do it again as it's gaining some momentum. Reparations. Again, in the state of California, the Reparations Task Force recommended that each black person in the state who descended from slaves could receive as much as $223,200 in compensation for the past injustice. That works out to north of $500 billion.
And where's that money coming from? Is it growing on trees?
I don't know. Silicon Valley Bank is not going to be able to provide it anymore.
Oh, that hip startup. Anybody who is anybody bank there in Northern California.
I love this line from an op-ed over at City Journal, city-journal.org, publication for the Manhattan Institute. Soledad Ursua writing essentially to read the coverage of this. If you didn't know anything about America, you'd think that America is just black and white, just black people and white people, and no other people of any other derivations, because it's just all black versus white in these conversations. But it turns out it's a little bit more complicated than that, because this just in, there are many Americans who are neither black nor white.
There are?
Did you know that?
I did not know.
For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Soledad Ursua, finance professional and elected board member of the Venice Neighborhood Council. Soledad, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, good morning.
Why did you want to emphasize that axiomatic point that it's more than just black and white in America, by the way?
Well, when you look at California, for instance, we're a majority-minority state where Latinos make up almost 40% of the population. Asian Americans are 15%. In fact, the black population is at 5%. So what you really see here is just this, what you see is that every policy failure is now going to be blamed on racism. And that's really why our elected officials are running with this. But, it just doesn't make any sense here in California, because what you see is that people who have no affiliation to slavery are going to end up footing the bill.
Well, so, that's actually a really interesting point. I wonder if that was tackled by the task force. And, of course, it's not just California. Some of the big cities have their own. San Francisco, $5 million per. So you can still rack up some real money pretty quickly, it looks like. But, right, why don't Latinos, Asian American, why don't they say, well, we should be exempted? It should just be the honkies that pay.
Well, what you see is this is really a political ploy. When you look at our unstable economy, you talked about the, banking collapse. We have an open border crisis. Democrats really don't have much to run on in 2024. So it seems that offering financial reparations for slavery is almost going to work as a 2024 top-of-ticket issue. So it's really perhaps something that will fully enshrine the black vote with Democrats in 2024, if nothing else.
Thinking about that, California wasn't a slave state, as I recall.
No, it's not. It entered into the Union as a free state. And what's really awful here is, these woke elected officials, they're really projecting all of this racism onto California. It just doesn't exist. And really, California history is one of Mexican-American history. And so it's wrong to even make these allegations. So there really is no basis here for any of these claims. Mexico slavery was not legal in Mexico before it entered into the Union. So there's really no claims here to be backed up on.
Well, what is the reaction been sort of across the racial spectrum from your perspective to some of these proposals? I mean, when people see, when San Francisco came out and said $5 million, that made national news. That's some real money. And as you do a little bit of the back of the envelope math too, where's California going to come up with $500 billion?
And that's right. So when you look at San Francisco, that's the one that's in the news right now. The Board of Supervisors in San Francisco, they're going to be voting soon because the final proposal has been put out. And what they've recommended is $5 million to every Black adult. They've also recommended the elimination of personal debt. So we don't know how much that will cost the taxpayer. They've also recommended an annual income of $97,000 for 250 years. And they would like for homes in San Francisco to be bought for just $1. So that's going to be very difficult because in San Francisco, it's hard to find anything under $1 million. And then
Not anymore.
And that's a studio.
Depends who you are. Yeah, it depends who you are. Apparently, there's going to be a lot of homes going for $1.
And in California, which is, this is the one that I've written about, we still don't know what the final bill will be because they're still deliberating. So the taxpayer is uncertain. But all we know is that this is going to be very big, and we'll see who ends up with the bill.
So do you think the Democrats aren't doing this for the love in their heart, that they're doing this to lock in Black votes to the Democratic Party forever?
And here's really what's happening, because this is really just going to cause, this is going to cause worse race relations among minorities, especially in California. And if our governor, Gavin Newsom, really cared about minority children, he could overhaul our state's failing schools. Because what's so awful here is when you look at California, Black and brown children cannot read, write, or do math. The numbers are shocking. 70% of Black children and 64% of Hispanic children do not meet state reading standards. And when it comes to math, that's even worse. 84% of Black students and 79% of Hispanics cannot meet math state standards. So we all know that quality education is really the foundation to achieving the American dream. It is your ticket to success. And in California, our kids they're never going to make it. And so if Newsom really cared about these kids, he could overhaul the states. We could open them up to offer vouchers, opportunity scholarships, charter schools. And the reason he won't do that is because the California Teachers Association is the most powerful force in California politics. You may remember that they came out and they, helped to defeat his recall effort. And so that's really here. So it's really the Democrats, the alliance to the teachers' unions and their political donors.
You're singing our song. We have the same exact problems here.
I just have to repeat that package in San Francisco. $5 million lump sum, $100,000 a year for 250 years. Buy property for $1 and forgive all personal debt.
Where do I sign up for that?
Did you? Are there politicians across the racial spectrum saying, come on? This doesn't pass the laugh test. This is just lunacy. There's no way that is financeable. Did anybody really anxious to write those checks? And frankly, even some people to receive those checks. Do you think that is going to make things better? Maybe for you. If you're on the receiving side, but come on. Isn't this a come on moment, even in California?
No, unfortunately, we lead the nation in our woke policies. And what is so dangerous here is that this has been allowed to go on for so long. Because, look at the San Francisco, the supervisors. They've really allowed this to go on. And then what happens now when you finally tell people this, isn't going to work out? I think that we're going to see very angry people in California. This is two different reparations task force that, they have been meeting for the past, year or two. So what happens now? How do you pivot? So there's going to be some very angry groups when they find out that the reparations are not going to go forward. And what you see here is, these are very weak-kneed politicians who put their finger up to the wind and they go along with it. A video that's gone viral recently is one of the supervisors in San Francisco. She was one of the defund the policers in 2020. Today, she's now crying for police in her own district. So we see that these woke, progressive elected officials, they just keep going along with it until, it blows up in their face.
Well, what about the Japanese Americans who are in internment camps in Northern California? Did they get anything? Are they part of this conversation?
Exactly. When you look at, what the task force in California did, the state, they looked at redlining and basically discrimination in housing. But what's interesting here is, when you take a historical look at this, every immigrant group has faced the same kind of discrimination in housing. So you could make the case that, Chinese Americans have faced even more discrimination with housing. Even Japanese Americans, we place them in intermittent camps. And so when you start thinking about it, why not go back, and maybe we should give California back to Mexico. But so the fundamental problem with all of this is that the lineage of victimhood, it never ends. Because why not, make reparations to the Native Americans? So this is it just perpetuates racial antagonism when every minority group has faced discrimination in the United States.
And I'm sure they've shown their work, like how they arrived at 223,000 or how they arrived at 5 million. I'm sure this is, a very precise in terms of working the math out to come up with these numbers.
And what they did was they looked at housing discrimination practices, and they came up with an annual figure. They came up with it was about $5,000 a year, and they looked at a certain timeline. But redlining did happen in the United States, but these practices they also applied to all non-white people. Even Jews were affected. So it wasn't just Black Americans that were affected; it was all. And, especially what I did was I really took a Latino perspective on this. And what you see here is that, America is not perfect. But for Latinos, this is still the greatest nation on earth. It's the land of opportunity. And that's why everyone wants to be here. And so instead of looking back, we have to look forward. And again, the most important thing that anybody could do for minority children is to overhaul our state's failing education system, because that's really what propels us and helps us make it to the middle class.
But I mean, I'm just still trying to wrap my mind around this. I mean, even San Francisco recalled members of the school board, recalled their Soros-funded prosecutor, Chesa Bowden. I mean, so San Francisco voters are really down for coming up with $5 million per and the rest of that package?
Well, this is a big risk on the Democrats, and perhaps this is the pilot run, right, in San Francisco. But really what's happening here is, especially in California, you're seeing that minorities are becoming unwoke. Because you brought up District Attorney Chesa Boudin. It was Asian Americans that organized the recall and the recall of some of the board members. So it's Asian Americans who have really become organized and are fighting back against these woke policies. And then, just across the nation, you're seeing that Latinos are coming out as more conservative, and they're able to flip blue districts red. Because for Latinos, it's really about public safety and education. So the Democrats, this is, quite a risk, and perhaps they're willing to go forward with it. Maybe it's a test run in San Francisco and California.
Is this being driven by, white leftists mainly, or is it a cross section of the left?
Well, we only have white leftists in California. This is a one-party state.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, but specifically white. Like, is this the brainchild of Gavin Newsom, obviously, but the rest of them, Pelosi and Schiff and Swalwell and those types.
Yes. I mean, when you look at, who's elected, it is, it's this, really woke crew that we have. They're very detached from reality. When you look at California, what's very interesting is when you look at it, so you see that the coastal elites, all of the cities along the coast, they all vote heavily Democrat. But you go about 45 miles inland, and it's all red. And so what you see is that perhaps California really is a red state, but it's driven largely by coastal elites who are pushing these ideas on us.
What's newly minted LA Mayor Karen Bass, who was member of Congress for 12 years? What's she doing on this topic? Because San Francisco's doing their own thing. I assume LA would do their own thing, and other metropolitan areas, Silicon Valley, do their own thing.
So I live in Los Angeles. I've been watching this. I've been wondering why we haven't. I keep worrying that it's going to come here, but perhaps all the worst or the most woke ideas come out of San Francisco and they make their way down. But LA has yet to do anything yet, so we'll see.
Well, Godspeed in L.A. and California, although, again, as Amy said, you could say the same thing about us in Chicago. Soledad Ursua is a finance professional, and she's an elected board member of the Venice Neighborhood Council. Soledad, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
There are more than 40 million people enslaved in the world today, and that number grows every day. Most of them are women and children.
They lock you in cellars or in rooms with no windows, and 95% of girls that are born in the brothels remain trapped in the brothels for the rest of their lives.
SOS International is working to make freedom possible for these women and kids. And with your help, today can be the day another victim comes into freedom.
By the hundreds, we are saving those girls and bringing them to a secure place, a place that is a safe home for them to grow in.
Just $150 makes freedom possible for a trafficking victim. It provides shelter, food, counseling, everything they need to start a new life. Make freedom possible now. Dial pound 250 and say Chicago Cares. Every gift given right now will be doubled to free yet another woman or child. Dial pound 250 and say Chicago Cares. Or go to 560theanswer.com/SOS.
March is National Nutrition Month, conveniently right after the holidays and Valentine's Day. We're past the sweet season and into the spring season, a perfect time to kick the bad habits to the curb and kickstart healthy new ones. And there's no better way to do that than with my friends at 120 Life, a natural juice drink made of pomegranates, tart cherries, and cranberries that helps lower blood pressure without the side effects of pills. I'm drinking it. I love it. You will too. But even if you don't have high blood pressure, it's important to get your blood pressure checked. It affects almost half of all adults and can lead to serious health consequences if left untreated. That's why it's important to nip it in the bud. So go to 120life.com. That's 120life.com and order their 2-week trial pack. If you don't see lower BP numbers, you'll get your money back. That's guaranteed. And when you use the coupon code DAN, you'll save 15%. It's that simple. 120 Life is more than just a juice drink. It's a natural solution to high blood pressure and a great way to kickstart your healthy habits. 120 Life. We need more stuff like this.
Balance of Nature, changing the world one life at a time.
I love Balance of Nature. It has helped me so much. It is unreal. I had a doctor's appointment. He goes, what have you been doing? And I said, oh, I've been doing Balance of Nature. And he goes, really? I need to tell my other patients that they need to use that. Where do you get it?